Yo, what up, everybody? Pierre from SalomonFirearms Training. Today, I want to start a segment called Dear Black America. Basically, the whole point of the segment is to talk about all the issues revolving Black America, particularly relating to firearms, but not necessarily. I think a lot of these things are tied together. But basically, yeah, that's what we're going to be talking about. Anything with the Black community or urban community, however you want to call it, people of color, basically, you know what I mean. So, but yeah. So today I want to start off the segment with talking about guns in Black America. So, as you know, the topic of guns is very political in nature. And then when you talk about firearms with people in, urban communities or Black communities, the subject is even more taboo because you'll get terms like black on black crime, gang violence, violence in schools and things like that, and all these things. And there's literally like a negative connotation when when it comes to firearms and Black people. We'll have marches like, oh, get these guns off our street, yada yada yada, all these things that are talking about violence and whatnot. But you never really see anything about the education portion, right? So we always have all these programs, which is pretty much programs to keep our children, you know, from jail or a coffin. That's pretty much why all these programs, right? These, anti-gang violence or like these programs to like keep kids, if you're not playing basketball, right? You're not in a sport or you're not in some program to like protect you from going to jail or ending up in jail. That's pretty much all there is to the different programs in school in urban communities. So today I wanted to kind of change the way that we interact and change the way that we think about firearms in the Black community. So the way things, all right. So let's go over things that are currently the way things are currently right now. So the way things are currently right now in the Black community is that, right, there's a lot of stigma that come with Black people and firearms. There are a lot of violence, right? So in some cities like Chicago and things like that, there's undeniably a undeniably facts, that are saying, hey, this is a gun, this is an issue. So I honestly don't think the issue is with firearms per se. I don't think it's ever the issue with a tool. A firearm is a tool, and like any other tool, it's based on the user behind it. I think the issue comes with education and a lack of training. So, yes, we have a problem with guns in Black America, in Black community. What are we currently doing right now, and are those efforts effective? Right? So, what are we doing right now? They got gun buyback programs, right? We're not even gonna get into that, but they got gun buyback programs. They got marches. You'll see anti-violence marches where you'll see a lot of pastors and a lot of police, you know, higher ups in the police that basically saying, hey, we need to get these guns off our street. Keep them away from Black people because what happens when Black people and guns get together. There's that ultimate crime that happens. So we basically need to keep Black people away from firearms. But you rarely see, I don't want to say never, but I'm highly tempted to say never. But I will say rarely because this is what I'm actually trying to do. But you rarely see attempts and initiatives where you try to educate Black people, where you try, instead of keeping Black people away from firearms, you afford them a legal path, a clear legal path as to how to exercise their Second Amendment rights. Now, I want to remind you guys that the Second Amendment is a right. It's not a privilege. Driving is a privilege, We just did the Black Guns Matter a couple weeks ago out in Springfield and in Boston, and I was working with Maj Tour, and he of Black Guns Matter. You guys could check him out on YouTube and Facebook and stuff like that. But he really brought a great point. He really brought the sense of social issues, this culture that the 2A is really lacking. I did notice it from my end, but I guess I was running my business in a more economical manner as opposed to a social matter. I did want to tap into that. I did want to get more black people involved, but after working with him and hosting those two events with Firearm Fred as well, Firearm Fred was there with us. Com2A was also involved. It really ignited a fire inside of me and things that we need to do. So I want to try to change the way we talk about and the way we interact with the firearm. So by trying to keep firearms away from black people, right, black kids and stuff, because black kids handle firearms, they have to be associated with gangs, and that's the only thing that's going to happen is that they're going to end up dead or in jail. So why don't we try and focus on the education portion, focus on the training, focus on connecting people with resources if they want to use firearms. If you're a kid in a white neighborhood, all right, we'll use suburbs. We're really trying to simplify things right now, right? If you're a kid in a suburban environment, there's a likelihood that you grew up around firearms, that your parents took you to the range, your grandfather took you hunting, and all these different things. So when you think about guns and you want an opportunity to train with firearms, it appears to be relatively easy to access that training to legally go. You can say, hey, dad, granddad, hey, I want to go and go shoot guns, or there are shooting programs, or you're part of a shooting team, and you get to train competitively. But if you're a black kid in an urban environment, let's say Boston, and you want to use firearms, where do you go? And it's really funny because we live in this age of technology where information is readily available at our fingertips, but it still seems like people can't connect to those resources, right? Everybody has a smartphone, everybody has a laptop, a tablet. So why can't people go and access that information? Well, I don't think that they can't. I think that it doesn't even come to mind. I've dealt with so many black people that are like, yo, I live in Dorchester. I can't get a gun. I'm like, are you kidding me? To get a firearm, it takes freaking 4-hour class. You dedicate one day of your life, right? You take the NRA Home Firearm Safety course. It's a 4-hour course. We include range time afterwards, which is usually like 2 or 3 hours, depending on the size of the class. And then basically you get the certificates you need to apply for your license to carry. And it's really that easy. And a lot of people spend a lot of time talking about, oh, it's hard to get a license to carry in Boston, da 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 da. Getting the actual license is not the difficult part. I think the difficult part in Boston or Massachusetts in general is what comes afterwards, right? So you get the training, you get your certificates, and then you go apply, and then you might get restrictions and things like that. But a lot of people are not even thinking about that. They just think, oh, I automatically can't get it. If you're a black kid and you're going to school, like let's say me, right? I went to Burke High School, and I wanted, I was interested in guns. I always played Call of Duty growing up and all that stuff. Shout out to original Call of Duty. That thought didn't even come to mind as to a clear path. I never even thought about firearms until I joined the military. I never held a gun until my second day in boot camp. I was 18 years old, and I got given this fucking rifle in my hands, and I was like, holy shit. I kind of felt like I was in Call of Duty. I felt kind of cool. And then, they dispel all the myths and stuff. But, yeah. So I think the problem is not that there's a lack of resources. I think that is an issue. But I think the bigger issue is the mindset that comes with the community of color and firearms. So we know the current way is not working, right? We know our situation of firearms is broken right now. So instead of doing the same thing over and over again, why don't we try and to educate the populace? Why don't we get these schools going? How many times have I gone and I've seen like free shooting programs? If you go to Braintree Rifle and Pistol Gun Club, every Friday they have a free shooting team that kids can go and train. Braintree is not that far from Boston. It's like a 20-25 minute ride, and it's every Friday. But I've been there, and then if you go and you look at the demographic of those kids that are participating in that shooting program, they ain't black, right? They're not Hispanic, they're not Asians, they're not people of color. So I really hate the way that it's the media that projects this bad image of black people and guns, but then you'll have people in the community that also perpetrate that ideology. And I mean, I'm not trying to get into a college class here where, victims all often, uphold the system of oppression that they're in. They're psychologically, built in to support that. But we really need to change the way that we talk about guns. We always say, oh, gun violence is bad, guns and stuff like that. Okay, well, what are we going to do about it? Well, as much as some of y'all anti-gunners really want to believe that you can get guns off the street, you can't. Okay, so that's reality number one. There are more firearms in this country than there are people. So because of that, right? Yeah, you can try to stifle illegal firearms and stuff like that. Yeah, there's initiatives you can do, but firearms in general are still going to exist. Children are aware of firearms. You could be as young as you are. You can be like 2 or 3 years old, and you're watching Mickey and Minnie Mouse, and then like Mickey shoots something at like a bad guy. So cartoons are filled with firearms. Kids understand the concept of firearms. They play cops and robbers. They play Wild Wild West, or any game that has to deal with firearms. So children are aware of that. So why don't we start training and educating people on how to conduct this activity in a safe and legal manner? I think that's the biggest issue, is the training, education, and connecting people to resources. So my challenge to you, Black America, right, people in Black communities, whether you are pro-gun or anti-gun, our missions should be the same, right? Is to stop all this violence, right? However you want to title it. You'll hear all these stories and issues in the news and stuff. Well, why don't we try educating people, and why don't we try training them? So I am a resource, right? I am an immigrant. I'm from Haiti. I am freaking a black guy. I'm a veteran. I'm a lot of things, and I own a firearm training company. So a lot of black people always bitch and moan and cry about, oh, things are messed up in America, and things need to change in our communities, blah, 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 blah. Well, that change, first and foremost, needs to come from within. All right, whatever issues that we're having needs to come from within. They need to be initiatives that start within our community. So we need better schools, right? Okay, that shit needs to start from home, right? That value of education needs to start from home. That parent needs to go and check that kid's homework every single night and say, hey, yo, did you do your homework? Let me review your homework. Let me check it, blah, 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 blah. They need to be having conversations with their teacher saying, hey, how's my kid doing at school? This and that and yada, yada, yada. So a lot of the issues that Black America face really needs to start, that solution needs to start from within. It needs to start at home, needs to start in the community. And that's why I'm not just going to go rent out a hotel and host a class. And, because then it's not about the community. It's about me making money and getting people out. I want community organizations to be involved in changing the way that we talk about firearms, changing the way that we impact the path that the youth take. So if youth getting into gang violence and getting into illegal firearms and, whatever issues that you think is going on in the streets in the hood, then how are we going to impact that? How are we going to change, the avenue that these kids are on? So the avenue I think that we need to do is first get educated, right? Like, how can you be for something or against something if you're not educated on the matter? So my goal is not to convince everyone that you need a firearm, or you need a gun, you need this. No, my goal is to get you educated. Whether you agree with firearms existing or not, at least you can be educated to have an informed opinion, right? How many times have you watched a news clip where they're like, oh, this gun is an assault rifle and it shoots freaking 47 bullets in half a second? It's like, come on. Like, I can't even respect you. I can't even have an honest conversation with you because you're so fucking ignorant. You're so ignorant on the matter that how can I have an honest conversation with you? You really need to get educated for us to have a friendly discussion. So what I'm inviting is that we start this initiative where we go around, right? This is Boston is my local neighborhood, right? I went to Burke High School, and let's change that story. Let's start talking about it. So instead of just going to these committees where we're just like, yeah, we need to stop, violence in black neighborhoods. Yeah, okay, great. We need to do that. Okay, you're right. But how are we going to specifically, go about that? How are we going to accomplish our goals? What's our step by step? So for all the black people in Boston, right, or all the black people across America, let's come together and start changing our community. Let's start changing our stories. Let's take responsibility. Let's take the reins of changing our story. I don't want the story of black people to always be, they can't be trusted with firearms. When I drive down the street and I got a car full of guns because I'm going to the range or I'm coming from training or whatever, one of my biggest fears is actually being pulled over and someone recognizing the case has firearms, or they ask me to have firearms, or I raise my hands up in the air and then they see the freaking gun on my hip and then I get shot without them knowing, what my entire life has been, without them knowing that I joined the Army right after high school, that I've dedicated my entire life to public service. They will never get to know my story. So that's one of my biggest fears, is to not end up on the news as just another black guy, who, made someone fear for their life, and then therefore I had to die. And I think a lot of people have that fear even when they don't even have firearms, right? So like, it's really important about changing our stories because black people get shot every day and they don't even have a gun, right? So if you get shot and you don't even have a weapon, and you get shot because people think you had a weapon and they thought you were a threat and they shot you. Imagine when we do start carrying firearms, right? Like, that's even more dangerous because now that story, now it becomes true. That person did have a firearm, So there's a lot of this issue is very complex and it ties into a lot of different things. So this is not the only solution. This is not the solution. This is part of the solution. There are many avenues, there are many fronts to this war. There are a lot of different ways that we can change our community for the better. I think this is one of the ways, is tackling firearms, our right to own and defend and protect not only ourselves but those that we love and care about. So we really need to talk about this and figure out a way, to develop some solutions. So this is just my segment. This is pretty much like a macro picture, right? How do we go about tackling that? This is an 18-minute video. I know people's attention spans are pretty short in 2017 nowadays. I'm going to go ahead and cut it. But yeah, that's my goal, to talk about this. And then, through shorter videos, we will go and dissect, specific ways that we can deal with this issue. But yeah, the biggest thing you can do right now, if you want to help, if you watch the whole video for all, probably 20 minutes now, if you watch all the video and you want to help, the biggest way to help is give us a place where we can train, give us a place where we can voice our opinions and have a voice and be able to tell our stories and change the overall story. So if you want to help, find us an avenue, radio station, anything, anywhere where we can talk about, any group of people where we can start discussing the issue, right? Because we got to start talking about it. It has to not be taboo, and we have to figure out solutions. So we need to talk about it. So Pierre from Solomon Firearms, this is YouTube. This is the part where everybody says, yo, like and subscribe and share and yada, yada, yada. If you're about this movement, I really don't need to tell you to do that. So we want to talk about change, we want to support things and do that. This is one video that you can do. So thank you. Check check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and obviously on YouTube. So thank you.